Good morning here with Marco Marinucci from Mind the Bridge for another Mind the Chat. Today we have the great pleasure of having with us Sokwoo Rhee as the Corporate Senior Vice President for Innovation of LG Electronics. Hi, Sokwoo. How are you?
How are you, Marco?
Very good. Very good to have you here for a conversations on in particular, the entity LG Nova that you're leading here in Silicon Valley, and also as an extension, all the open innovation activities that LG Electronics is being running. This also falls under the umbrella of our corporate startup stars, the prizes that we do annually with the International Chamber of Commerce, ICC, and LG Nova is one of the recipients of those prizes. So congratulations for that.
Thank you, Marco.
Right. Soko, let's start maybe, in a complex world of LG Electronics, maybe you can mention a few areas where the group is focusing on integration investments or partnership with the startups, and then we can focus a little bit deeper on the definition of LG Nova.
Sure. So our mission is to identify and discover and develop new businesses in future growth areas for LG Electronics. So we look at digital healthcare, we look at energy and ESG. We also look at metaverse areas, and we also look at any other innovative sectors that is emerging. So those are 3 or 4 focus areas, but we're open for any other areas too.
Within LG Electronics, I know there's a venture capital, corporate venture capital. Do you want to mention maybe some other entities that maybe startups would encounter in the galaxy of LG?
Yeah, of course. LG Electronics is a large corporation, but LG as a LG group, meaning the LG affiliated companies, is even bigger because it's a collection of affiliated companies, and LG Electronics is one of them. And there's a holding company that holds there's dozens of LG affiliated companies. And LG Nova belongs to LG Electronics. So we are the innovation arm of LG Electronics. Now, there's also LG CVC, Corporate Venture Capital, called LG Tech Ventures, that reports to LG Holding Company itself, which sits on top of LG Electronics. And their mission is to invest in future opportunities in terms of the capital, the venture capital perspective. LG Nova is a little different. I mean, what our mission is to create new businesses working with the startups. So through this process, we do collaboration, partnership, joint venture. But one of the methods that we use could potentially be equity investment. So we use investment as a tool in LG Nova, but our mission is creating literally new businesses, where CVC, corporate venture capital, it is actually venture capital.
Got it. Great. And so for companies, startups out there now, at least they see the difference, right? That a Nova as a wider kind of umbrella with different potential opportunities, and we'll discuss those opportunities, versus a pure CVC play that LG Tech Ventures is focusing on. Awesome. And maybe to get started, why don't you give us a little bit of your background as a senior executive? What took you in this role at the LG? Also, you had some interesting experience also in the White House and some other specific experience that I think you're bringing as part of your toolkit there. Maybe
Yeah.
a fast mention there.
Yeah. Actually, that's that's a fascinating question because my journey as my career was sort of it was a journey to find way to make an impact through technology. So, right out of the grad school, I started a company, my own startup, and raised multiple rounds of funding, typical venture-backed company, and sold the company after several years. And then I was looking for what I'm going to do next, and the company was about what we called wireless sensor network. Now they call it IoT, Internet of Things. That's what they call it. But back then, that word didn't exist, so we called it M2M, WSN, and all those kind of stuff. So anyway,
Much geekier.
yeah. Now I'm getting into more engineering world. Oh, by the way, I'm an engineer by training, so forgive me if I'm
Same here. Nobody's perfect. I'm sorry.
okay, that's a good one. Okay. So after that, uh, a recruiter working for the White House called me, and then they said, White House thinks at that time there was Obama administration, and they have this interesting program called the Presidential Innovation Fellow, and the whole point is bringing private sector experts in the areas that the White House thinks is going to be future defining for the United States. And then they want to help industry, work with the industry to see how they can grow the overall the level of the size of the market and level of involvement from the industry. And one of the interested sectors was IoT. Okay, so they called it CPS, Cyber Physical Systems, but it was really IoT. So and they said, "Well, you've been doing IoT for a decade, so you could be a good candidate." So okay, sounds like interesting. So what I was really interested at the time was this. So when you do startup, you are laser focused. You gotta build product and you gotta sell the product, and then you gotta create revenue and all that. So you become an expert in that narrow sector and you make an impact in the narrow sector, but you always miss the opportunity to look at broader impact, really across the industry. So this White House opportunity seemed like a complete 180 degrees from what I was doing, and I was fascinated by that. So I joined the program, and I worked for them for a year to create a program, an interesting program to improve the IoT landscape of the United States. And then the biggest problem of IoT even now is what I call fragmentation. So everything is so fragmented. They're like, they do chip guys, they're doing their thing, software guys, they're doing things, service guys, their own thing. It's not really cohesive. So that was the problem I tried to solve. And then after the 1 year, I tried to apply to actual the municipalities. So it became smart city initiative at that point. So that's done that for 5 years. I created the largest federal government smart city program at that point. And then I got a call from LG Electronics and said, "Hey, you seem to be doing something great, pulling 500 organizations together and working with 200 companies, creating hundreds of projects that is really changing the landscape of smart city and IoT." So they were like, "Why don't you apply the expertise to create new businesses in the private sector?" Okay, so that's what
Back to the private sector.
exactly. And then LG was obviously even now is really looking for the next big thing. So what is just like every company, what is the next wave? What is the next growth area? So my mission became, okay, let's find the next growth engine, and not just find it, but also nurture it and also actually grow the new business. That's how I created this LG Nova.
Perfect. I think that's a perfect segue on then LG Nova. You're talking about how many years ago, just to get a little bit also of a timeline here. When
So
was LG Nova created?
yeah, so I've been here only a little bit over a year and a half so less than 2 years. So LG Nova was created January last year.
Okay.
So literally, we are about 60 months old.
Oh my
Or
gosh.
actually,
Yeah.
so yeah, 22 months, I'll say.
Okay. So you're starting walking before you start running. And I had the pleasure to be invited and be one of the speakers of the probably I don't know if it was the launch event, but to some extent it was also because of the pandemic before of the innovation festival that you hosted here in Silicon Valley. And then also to clarify, LG Nova has a head in Silicon Valley, though as a
Correct.
has a global view. Correct? Is the
Correct. So we are located, our office is located in Silicon Valley, but our reach or our scope is global. Although, as you can imagine, since we are in the United States, so we have a lot of interactions with the North American entities and startups, much more. But I will say about half of our startup portfolio companies are in the North America, but the other half are coming from Europe, Asia, all over the world.
Yeah. And it seems to me, I mean, we've been on the receiving side and the collaboration sides of both governments and corporates. And obviously, with a direct presence in South Korea, we encounter LG as well as the Hyundai and the Samsung of the world. So is the large conglomerates that are also now working on the activities of integration engagement with startups. A lot of them tend to have really still the headquarters of the main activities in back to South Korea. Doesn't seem to be the case, at least with the LG Nova. Why Silicon Valley? Was it already decided, or was also part of you know um, your seniority and bringing on board and say this makes sense to have it and localize in Silicon Valley first?
So let me first explain why this LG Nova was created, which I already did. But the point was, okay, LG Electronics doing well in Korea, mostly in manufacturing, but they also want to look at other sectors like service, platform. And if you look at all these new service and platform businesses, US still, and we may continue to be this way for a while, dominates new creation of this new type service businesses. So I think for LG's leadership perspective, it was natural to say, okay, we should have this kind of initiative in the United States or North America.
Mhm.
But then the question becomes, where should we put it? So in the United States, and that's where I provide some input. I mean, I'm sure senior leadership already had in mind. Okay, well, there's great clusters of innovation in the United States, multiple of them. But still, we believe Silicon Valley is the center of the innovation at this point. So I suggested that, and that's why we are located here.
Got it. You alluded at the very beginning the areas of focus of digital health, metaverse gaming, electric mobility, display, smart lifestyle. Did I forget something? Yeah.
Correct.
Tell us. So that's to focus more on the industries, but tell us how you are structured inside. If you have different subset of activities, because this is something that again I think is in is being building as we speak. Considering that most of those programs are at the first editions.
Yeah, so that is the fascinating question because if you think about it, all these sectors that I just mentioned, digital health and metaverse, and these things are what I call emerging new areas. And by definition, you don't have a very structured industry perspective because that's like it's beginning. So part of our job and a part of our process of working with startups is to identify where it's going. So the basic philosophy is this: most of the large companies, probably most, if not all, they use what we call inside out approach for innovation or create new businesses. They typically spend R&D funding in a lab, and they come with something interesting, and they think one of them can, turn to a real product and sell it. That's usually what happens. That's what I call inside out. Now, the problem of that approach is that it's that the time has changed a little bit from, I mean, that kind of inside out worked for last probably 50 years, but now there are more collaboration. I mean, there are people discuss and collaborate to create new ideas in much more in a group setting, in a collaborative setting. So innovation, the generate the production, the method of production of innovation has changed a lot since last 4 5 10 years. So what we do is what we call outside in. So we bring in startups, we ask startups to tell us what they want to do with us instead of we telling them what do you want to do with them. So why it's effective is because in just sectors like emerging sectors like we just talking about, because we don't know everything. And frankly, we may know very little as LG Electronics. There are a lot of startups, hundreds and thousands of them. They work in all different kind of small subsectors, and they come to us and say, "Hey, I'm an expert in this very small segment of digital health, and I think I have an idea to work with LG Electronics." And LG Electronics has these kind of assets, and they can provide, and that's where we bring this together. And if you look at all these hundreds and thousands of startups that we are trying to work with and come to us, it interesting trends emerge out of that. So to short answer, sorry for a long and short answer is, instead of us trying to define what those subsectors are, we want startups to define it for us, and not just one or two startups. We want to see the landscape and where the money is flowing, where the startups are more interested, where those startup founders are interested. That's going to be the guiding light for us.
On a practical term, if I'm a startups that have a developed products or part of it, and they see an opportunity in partnering with the LG and LG Nova in this case, what is the process? How do you accept collaboration proposals if you are expecting startups to tell you what the proposal can be?
Absolutely. So that's where our Grand Challenge program comes in. So we have a program called the Grand Challenge program. The word challenge is a little misleading because we are not sort of like, you are not doing it like challenge thing. We are essentially working with the startups to co-create new business plans. Okay, so there's a period, typically 6 to 8 weeks, that we open up and we receive proposals from startups, and they send their proposal. And it's not just startups, there are sometimes public companies, they send proposals because they say, well, it's a great opportunity to work with LG Electronics, so they do that. And we go through and review those proposals, you look at companies, and most important thing there for us is, what is the collaboration idea? What is the 1+1 that can be 3 or 4? So obviously we look at the quality of the startups themselves. It's important, it's very important. But what is more important for us is how can you imagine the this combined business with LG, okay? And then what do they think LG can help to make it work? Of course, in addition to capital, everybody wants capital. That's one thing, but that's not the only thing. Usually, they really say, okay, they really want to grow their business, and then practically speaking, when they do it, we look at it. There's certain process of reviewing, and once we come out with a short list, usually dozens of startups, then our EIRs, actually our employees who have been in startups, who have been venture capitalists themselves, they reach out to them and they get assigned to startups. And then
Entrepreneurs in residence, EIRs.
entrepreneurs are EIRs. And then they co-create this joint business plan with the startups. Okay. And the joint business plan could be simply like startups say, I have a sensor. Can I connect this sensor to your home system? Or I have a medical device. Can I connect this to your medical platform if you have, for example? And then we go to market together. So that's where 1+1 becomes 3. Now, after we go through this business planning process, if this business plan is selected, then we So we got a little careful here. So we consider equity investment most of the cases. Once we decide, we typically invest. So and then also we put our own team behind the actual development of the business. So this is where it becomes very different. Investment is a tool for us. It's just a small piece of equation. What really counts is we literally create a business team in LG Nova to work on this growing this business with a startup. That's the difference.
Got it. So let me recap the timing of how these things, are consequent. So first there is a selection, there is an opening. I guess that do you have a deadline, or is that a rolling process that you always have
Yeah,
open?
so the deadline, the second year deadline just wrapped up a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago. But we also understand that once a year deadline is probably not applicable to many startups, so it's
Yeah.
not a ideal. So next year we are considering making a rolling basis.
Rolling basis. Then there's an evaluation case, and then there is as a result of this evaluation, you decide a subset of companies that you want to commit. At least you commit to have an entrepreneurial residence of your own people being associated with a company, writing a business plan together of how that collaboration can look like, and can have different implementations, can be just a venture client, can be potential also co-development, I guess. And then top of that, maybe also some equity investments. What is that commitment of time? Is there a commitment of time, or can that, be for, it can vary based on collaboration to collaboration, right?
Yeah, so we try to finish that cycle. I don't want to call it evaluation, because evaluation sounds like we are actually just reviewing it. So like that's
Mhm.
really not what you're doing. We
Well,
work with the startups.
is an evaluation of a collaboration, I
Yeah,
assume.
evaluation of collaboration opportunities. That typically takes about 3 months. Okay, so we
Okay.
are trying to finish it in 3 months. Depending on the level and the scope of the collaboration. Obviously, if it's really big, then it takes more time to discuss and collaborate. So sometimes it goes up to 6 months, but usually we're trying to wrap up this collaboration opportunity discussion in 3 months.
3 months. Got it.
Yes,
Back at the scope of Nova, you mentioned at the beginning, our scope is to create an impact, right? And that can be measured in different ways. And maybe that's kind of related also. In which part of the organization do you report to? Who are you reporting to within LG Electronics?
absolutely. So one thing that we I want to explain to the audience is that LG Electronics is a one company, but inside of that there are four sub companies. Okay, then each sub company keeps their own P&L, so it
Mhm.
operates like its own company. And inside of and there is this C-level structure, CEOs and CFOs and CSOs that sits on top of these four sub companies, and we report to CSO group, so Chief Strategy Officers group, who reports directly to CEO.
Got it.
So what is also interesting is this group, LG Nova, was actually created by current global CEO, who was the CSO
At the
last
time.
year. Yeah, at a
Interesting.
time. And so, I
So
mean,
you
he had
definitely have the buy-in because it's something that he created, so we might as well, be behind it.
yeah. So the interestingly, the reason this structure is important is
Yeah,
because if you unless you are reporting directly to C level into C levels, sometimes it is hard to maintain the course of innovation. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just that when you work with sub companies, they have their own P&L. They have to maintain every 3 months, and then it's a hard thing to do. So many times our activities has to be measured by in years, not in months. So it is a very effective structure to have us reporting to C levels in the global headquarters.
100%. And so, with that said, how does success look like? What's the measure of success?
Yeah.
What you're expecting to report to the CEO, on a yearly basis, with the idea that is a progress over a number of years?
Yes. So there are a couple of things I have to talk about. So the first thing is more of a practical measure of success, meaning, okay, our mission is to create new businesses, meaning that we have to churn out new business units or new lines of businesses in the areas that of the future for LG to grow in the future. So like digital health and ESG and all these things. So that is more of a practical measure of success. So how many businesses you create, how many startups you work with to create those businesses. Those are the ones.
When you say create a new business, is one of the options also to create a new joint venture?
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah,
literally,
absolutely. So I should have defined it a little better. So yes. So any collaborative business mechanism, joint venture, and major investment. We do equity investment all along, but let's say, what about we acquire a big chunk of those company and almost become a joint venture, for example, or create a completely new entity that that startup is heavily engaged in, and or sometimes go to directly to M&A, for example. So
got it.
all these options are available, and in some cases it becomes a strong commercial relationship in some cases. So all these options are available, and that's our measure of success, or its outcome of the process. Now, there's a little bit more of a sort of like philosophical metric too there. So meaning, okay, making money is important, obviously, as a business, but there are many different ways to make money. And the question is, where do you launch your business? Where do you focus your business? And that not sure whether a lot of you know about this, but LG, there's something called LG Way. So it's a LG code of conduct, and LG's like vision, it's defined at the holding company level. Essentially, what we want to do is we want to innovate for impact. We want to innovate to improve the quality of life. So that is our goal. So that's why when you choose these future areas like health or ESG, and the metaverse, which includes reskilling and training of the jobs, for example, we always pay attention to, okay, how do we help people? How do we improve the world and improve the quality of life? So it's not a like sort of absolute metric you can
Mhm.
write down in numbers, but it is in our DNA.
Got it. Very clear. So I know that you're in the first months of operations, but maybe there are some, progress or success stories that you feel like sharing in this, first wave of collaborations.
Yeah, of course. Uh, so last year we started the first Grand Challenge program, and we received about 1,300 startup proposals. And then, well, I'm really grateful to the level of the interest that startups and founders are paying to, they paid attention to us. Now, we went through the process we just mentioned, and we selected 10 companies. It's on our website. It's a public information to create joint businesses with us. So those companies include healthcare. About five of them are healthcare companies. About three of them are ESG type of companies, energy focused, and a couple of them are metaverse, mostly in the training and reskilling area. So interestingly, through this process, startups evolve, right? So we, for a 3 to 6 month process, actually, a couple of companies got acquired through this process.
It
So
happens. Yep.
it happens. So it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. That means we are talking to the right partners. That's how we see it. And those startups that we are working with are strong, and they are seen not just by us but by others to so that, okay, these are the really good companies to work with. So it is sort of like a little bit side story, but when I see those startups being more successful as he goes, I feel really, ecstatic. So I feel happy, excited about it, thrilled to see them. Not because we just want to work with them, it's just because I'm just so happy to see these new startups and new innovation come. They get recognized, they become successful. They actually now become real driver of the market out there. So uh, I mean, I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
No,
I'm
no, no.
just
I
sidetracking
think
a little bit, but this is
there's
really fun.
definitely a progress, and I assume we want to keep all this information, open to the public of activities that are becoming then commercial together, because I think it's also a clear proof of the focus that you've been having. Last question here, also as a serial entrepreneur, and then now move to the other side of the table of the corporate world. Do you have any specific suggestions for entrepreneurs of startups out there in how to be successful while dealing with a large corporates like yourself?
Yes. Yes, that is a probably the most important question and most important answer I can give to audience if the audience is a startup founder right now. Um, the when you are working with corporates, there are upsides and downsides. Okay, the upside is the potential is huge if you work with them correctly. Okay, the downside is uh, the word that startup founders hate the most, which is patience. Okay,
Time.
many startup founders we're gonna know this because corporates do not move as fast as you want. It's not because corporate people in corporate are not interested in moving fast. It's just the system was designed to be slow. Okay, so uh, we as LG Nova recognize that. I was a startup founder. I work with a lot of large corporations, and I know exactly what it feels like. Sometimes you feel like you are jumping into the sector that you are a small kid, and there's this 800-pound gorilla out there, and you are sometimes a little afraid to work with them. I completely understand it because I was on that side. So my advice to them is when you are working with a corporate, please think about what they will be looking for. And now a lot of different corporates look for different things. Some corporates, I would say 99% of the corporate collaboration is going to focus on, okay, how do we create revenue right away? How can I get your thing into mine and do the thing? Uh, if that's the type of corporate you are working with, you have to figure out how to meet their requirements, how to work with them. If the startups are working with a different organization like us, LG Nova, we are more of a long-term business growth organization. We are not looking for the revenue next quarter. Okay, that's not
Mhm.
what you're doing. Then they have to work with us to paint the picture of the vision of how these two organizations come together in next coming years, not just a month, and what can we build together. It's not about, oh, please invest into my company, then I'll do whatever you want. That's not what you're looking for. Okay, we are trying to say it's a partnership. Okay, startups, please work with us to create and illustrate the vision what we can build together next 5 years, hopefully can grow to billions of dollars business together. That's what you're looking for. So going back to your question of what should startups pay attention to. Startups has usually it's very easy to be hogged down into their own thing. So, okay, I need money today, so I have to get money. I mean, yeah, understand. I have to get my products out today, so understandable. But when you are working at corporate, my advice is please try to talk to them and see what they want, what they need. And in case of us, we are trying to really build business together. Then they should be able to talk to us and discuss how to build that thing together. I think that is probably the most important, most advice I want to give. And if that happens, money comes and typically it follows. Like us, we are willing to invest too.
So basically, yes, patience is a word that is goes typically against the DNA of a startup. But patience, if there's a route to extremely effective growth together, and also I think the fact that you commit to associate, the fact that also you nominally call them entrepreneurial residents rather than account managers of a corporate, I think is really an express communication that you want to deal entrepreneurially with,
And
if
Marco,
that's a
that is
word.
by design. Okay,
Yes.
so I knew I was on the startup side. So when I talk to large corporates, I typically meet this corporate. Nothing against the corporate because I'm the corporate too. That who's been there for a long time and doing account management, as you just mentioned, not very effective because they don't understand what startups are facing. So that's why I literally recruited his new EIRs, and they're full-time employees in LG, but they are new employees that have background of startups and venture capital. So they understand what startups are
Yeah,
facing as much as I understand.
they've been there. Excellent, Soko. Listen, thanks again for the insights and the presentation. Congratulations again in your progress, and looking forward to see where LG Nova is going to. So
And
more
Marco,
forward
I
to the
really
future.
great, Marco. I really appreciate this opportunity, and then it's awesome. And I really want to build the new businesses, excellent and awesome business with the startups. That's our goal.
Perfect. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.